Welcome to the SOB radio show, where we have fun, interesting guests, and hot topics. Each week, we offer insights into music, fashion, health, fitness, and humor. Do you have the perfect guest for us to interview? I want to know. Drop me a line on our Facebook page at Spunky Old Broad 1 or reach out to me on our website at spunkyoldbroad.com. And now, back to the show. Hi, everyone. I have a delightful guest for you today. Her name is Yvette Grove, and she is a sought-after advisor, speaker, and author whose energy and enthusiasm are contagious and ignites passion to create, grow, and succeed. She is currently Director of Growth and Personal Coach for Paragon Realtors in Dallas, Texas. Her entrepreneurial spirit and healthy passion for creating, innovating, collaborating, and connectedness makes her a valuable resource for success-oriented individuals and businesses. She has a why not mindset that is complemented by a strong sense of really reality-based planning. She, though, has published a children's book, Lily's Deliciously Different Day. And it's a book that reminds us that we are deliciously different by design, and our differences is what makes the world work. She's currently in production with her second book in the Deliciously Different series, as well as authoring a book, The Principle of Enough. Welcome, Yvette.
Thank you so much for having me. I am very happy to be here.
Well, you know, Yvette is a member of my mastermind group, and that is how I met her originally. And I will tell you that she has a very responsible position in real estate. I mean, and she's excellent at it. And when I found out that she wrote this book, which is so different, and it's called The Lily's Deliciously Different Day, I thought I just have to have her on my SOB show because, I love women who are over 50, who are doing many things and many interesting things and many deliciously different things. So, Yvette, the first question I'm going to ask you is, you say your tagline is why not? And of course, I believe that myself. How did that tagline come about?
You know, early in my career, people would ask me to help them, and I'm like, why are they asking me? Like, who am I? And a lot of it was because I had this why not attitude. And someone said, oh, I have this idea of blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why not? Let's go do it. And the joke became, don't ask Yvette unless you're serious, because I'd like make 5 phone calls and, but I was always curious, that there's a famous quote. Some people ask why, I ask why not, and I'm always looking for the solution, for the something to connect the dots. And then my name starts with why, so I do it with a why not.
Well, I think, especially in today's world, this is so important. I think that people need to say, why not do it? I mean, I think that's part of it. But, a lot of people are really frightened and scared to take that first step. And especially when you get to be over 50 and you think, wow, of everything I've done in my life and everything that has happened, how on earth how did I get here in the first place? And then you start to question, should I do this? Should I do not do this? Well, I have to ask you, where did Lily's Deliciously Different Day come from? Because it's a child's book, and it's, it's just not what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So where did this idea come from? I understand the feeling of people being different, but especially from a child's viewpoint.
So, it's interesting. I had been writing The Principle of Enough, which is really a pondering of what if we knew we were enough and that there was enough, how would it change our lives, our communities, and the world? And I'm still writing that. It's a deeper topic for sure. But off and on throughout my life, my mother would say, oh, Yvette's, tell other people, not me. She'd say, oh, Yvette's going to write a children's book one day. And I would think about it, and I'm like, yeah, I got nothing. And I had before I coached realtors, I had helped people with startups and small businesses. And I was writing a curriculum called uh, Proof of Concept, how to kind of walk, see one, if your business was viable, if people would buy the product, and two, if you were ready to start a business. And so I did that. And so I was telling somebody from my business world, and he's Croatian, had a heavy accent. He goes, I think you're going to write a children's book. And I went, whoa, wait a minute. Where did that come from? Like, he didn't know my mother. He didn't know me personally. So I started meditating on that and go, okay, apparently I'm writing a children's book. And I don't even know where I would start. But all of my coaching, all of my training that I've written, all of my leadership has always been about, who are you? What are your gifts? What are your talents? What are your strengths? How do we leverage that in your current business? How do we create a business? How do we create a path? So all my coaching has always been, discovering who you are. And I also would get frustrated, whether it was at a country club or a church or whatever, that so much of society wants us to be alike. And I would look at nature. I'm a big nature person. And I would say, there is nothing in nature alike. And we celebrate that. But yet we're all trying to be alike. How crazy is that? And so that was kind of in the back of my mind. And Wayne Dyer's always like, if you wake up in the middle of the night, get up. That's, the spirit talking to you. And I woke up one time in the middle of the night, and the whole story for Lily was in my head. And it was about a little girl who wished she could be like everyone else. And the next morning, it was like Wacky Wednesday. Everything in her world was exactly the same, to the point it was ludicrous. But my point was, not only is it beautiful and wonderful that we're different, but it's absolutely essential that we are different and that we live out those differences instead of a daffodil trying to be a daisy. Because that's not what your DNA, that little seed doesn't have the capability of being the daffodil. It's a daisy, and that daisy's necessary. And so little did I know that book would come out and launch, because everything takes longer than you think. And never would I have guessed our country would have been in the state that it's been in the last 4 years. But it came out during the election of 2016. And
That's amazing. That's amazing. And the interesting thing is that, what I find fascinating is people who are writers usually write from a tender age. In other words, I want to be a writer, and they start on a newspaper, or they start a blog, or they do this or they do that. But you've been in the business world for so long, and then to do this, I just think it's so. I don't want to say out of character, because you're the kind of person that can do anything, but it just isn't what is normal. So I just find it fascinating that you woke up and there it was, and I just think that's fantastic. So what are your plans with the books that you're doing? What does the future hold for Yvette in writing?
So the second book in the Deliciously Different series is being illustrated right now, and the illustrations are amazing. But I took one of the characters. I'm trying to create a whole arc of characters for this deliciously different world to really allow, after 2017, which was worse than the end of 2016. If you remember, we had the suicides, we had the Me Too movement, Black Lives Matter, school shootings, like all of that. And I just sat at the end of the year going, okay, what's the antidote? And I just kept hearing the word value. If we value ourselves, we value one another, none of these are issues. So I thought, okay, well, how do I bring that home? And so I had already written book 2, which is, one of the little girls is Syrian. She hosts a tea party, and everybody tells her she's doing it wrong. And so in a little dream sequence, she goes across the world to where all of her friends are from originally, and sees that tea is done differently across the world. So it's not about being wrong, but about understanding our differences. And again, valuing through understanding. And so I thought, how do I bring that home? So what I'm hoping to create is a platform with not only my books, but other people's books that inspire this idea of valuing ourselves and valuing others, valuing our earth through books and activities, seeds, and like little collectible finger puppets. So I'm creating a whole platform right now that I'm looking at launching, and so not only getting it into the schools, which was wonderful, but really having those conversations at home about people that are different than us, and learning how marvelous that is, and really delighting in our differences and embracing our differences. And I think there's no more timely subject right now.
Well, absolutely. And the interesting thing is that, I was reading some things before we did our broadcast this morning, and uh, one person was saying in this post that she did, let's not talk about everybody's differences, and let's not talk about all the things that are going on in the world today. Let's talk about what's good. Like, I love my husband. Um, my neighbors come and take care of me. People say hello. My friends still call me. Things like that. And I thought,
Yeah.
interesting and a different perspective than everything that we're hearing and what everybody's going through. And I know it's a tough time for everybody and everything, but it is true that we have to look at how we're going to get through this and what's going to be a year from now, not what's tomorrow and not what's a month from now, but what's a year from now. And let's hopefully
Mm-hmm.
that many of these things are gone. But you also you do a lot with your coaching in real estate, and I
That's correct.
have been on mastermind calls with you when you've had to, you know, say, "Excuse me, I've got
Yeah.
a burning issue to deal with," and then you do take care of it, and then you come back, and everything is okay. But you also coach your own staff, and then of course you do coaching besides that. So tell us a little bit about you know, what is your unique approach in coaching? How are you different from other coaches who do what you do?
Again, I think it's always about, my thing has always been finding out who you are, and what's unique about you, what you're passionate about, and what your gifts are. Um, and taking somebody, people are really into the Enneagram and the disc test and stuff like that. And people are like, oh, well, if I'm a XYZ, does that mean I won't be successful? And I'm like, no, 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 no. But your success won't look like a D's success if you're a C, you know. So what we want to do is tap into who you are. And what my special gift has always been, even early on when I had sales teams, was taking who you are and creating a path of success that's authentic to that. And so when I sit down with an agent, and maybe they're shyer and they're like, I don't know as many people, or I just, I'm not going to go, work a room. I can work a room, but they don't want to work a room. So I find, okay, so what do you enjoy? What are you passionate about? Get involved in those things. Community service, for somebody who isn't like, a big personality, go serve on a board with people, like-minded people. And when they get to know you, they're going to like and trust you. But really helping people blossom with who they already are. I had one agent, he was burnt out, he was unhappy, and he said, I'm grumpy dad, my wife's frustrated with me, I'm not doing well in my business. And I said, if you could do anything, what would you do? And he said, I'd play golf. And I said, well, you're a realtor who works with a lot of heavy hitter investors. Why aren't you playing golf? That's the best way for your business and for your mental and emotional health. And then he said, I'd fly fish. I love fly fishing. I'd be a fly fishing guide. And I said, okay, well, again, what if once or twice a year you planned a fly fishing trip for your best clients? And you know, you got to be their guide and really connect with them on a deeper level, because we are in a relationship business. You know, technology has not been able to knock us down yet, because people want somebody to guide them through the process. So find the things that you love, go do them, and connect with people in a really authentic way so that you can build trust. And then do your homework, know your product better than everyone else. And that the combination of those two things. So I really take a personal approach. I call it an anchor. I kind of coined and trademarking a process called anchor point strategy. An anchor point is the stance and the way you hold your bow when you're trying to learn to shoot a bow and arrow. And everybody has a different anchor to hit their mark. And so what I help them figure out is what their anchor point is, so they have the best chance of success.
Well, it's kind of interesting when you talk about things like that, because I know that, I coach people as well. I mentor people, and I'm always amazed at what their stumbling blocks are. For example, the young man or the man that came to you that said, my wife says I'm grouchy, and I'm not doing well on my business, and so forth and so on. And yet, it's obvious. You asked him a very simple question. Well, what would you really like to do in your free time? What do you find pleasure at? And he talks about golf, and he talks about fly fishing, none of which he's doing, which he could do without Yvette. In other words,
Mm-hmm.
if he really looked at it, he could do it. But it's interesting that people are blocked by their own self and not being able to see what's right in front of them. And
And they
so,
need permission. By the way,
exactly.
he ended up being so much happier. His business did great. His relationship was better, and he was just a happier person. And people like to work with happy people. So, and I'm very fortunate. I do not work in your traditional real estate firm. We're a boutique firm here in Dallas. And when I came on here, we had two other offers, one for a very large brand nation internationally. And I was meeting with the broker, Mike Miller, and he said, I have all these new agents that really need your attention, but I have 5 agents that just are dealing with some personal things, and they're really struggling, and I need you to check in on them. And I thought, this is my place. We're not about quotas here. We're a family, and I have permission to look at people as whole people, not as production numbers. And that's why I chose Paragon Realtors.
And it's worked out for you, and it's worked out for you well, and you're very good at what you do. And some of the suggestions I know that you've made to your uh, I will say your salespeople have increased their productivity, increased their revenue, and so I know they're grateful for that. And it's interesting because um, I think what coaches do is they give us all, because we all have coaches. We all have coaches. Coaches have coaches, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't be who they are if they didn't have coaches. So I think coaches give us permission to be who we are and to do what we need to
Mm-hmm.
do. And you have a principle called enough. You say it's the principle of enough. And I look at people and say, what is enough? I look at the people who are going through fires. I look at the people going through floods and hurricanes who lose everything, and they start over. So what is enough? Is it getting that extra car? Is it getting that extra home? Is it getting that extra piece of jewelry? What is enough? I mean, is enough getting up, being happy, loving what you do, loving the people around you, loving everything about your life, or is it envy or jealousy or what? So
Yeah.
what is your principle of enough?
It's so funny. As you're saying those things, I have chills, because Gail, you are the perfect example of this principle. And the principle is the answer is within us, first of all. But how I came up, what happened is, it was a series of 3 things. I had been coming out of a second divorce and feeling, like I'd really failed. and, just kind of dissecting, okay, where did I go wrong? And, what could have been different. And I realized that my whole life, I thought I needed something else or someone else, to, I was raised to be, to get married, have babies, and, that I needed that. That was how I would be fulfilled, and complete. And then after my first divorce, I had two young children, and, thought I needed somebody to help me raise them. So I made really bad decisions out of this place of not realizing that I was enough in and of myself. The second trigger was my brother, who's wildly successful. I think from birth, anything he's ever done or touched has been successful. And he said to me in conversation, well, when I'm successful, and when I say on anybody's terms he's successful, I just looked at him and thought, in what world are you not successful? And then, except for you don't have a lot of joy right now. So, like you said, what is enough? And then the third was my dog had puppies, and somebody said she knew what to do. And I said, well, apparently you weren't raised on a farm, but yes, animals already know what to do. And all of a sudden a light bulb came on, and I went, so do we. And our whole lives, society unteaches us to know what we already know, that we are designed to have this internal compass in us, and we're talked out of it our whole life. So the principle enough is, if I knew I was enough, how would that change my life and my relationships? And if I knew there was enough in this world for all of us, how would that change our communities, our countries, and our world? And one, we'd take better care of our world. Two, we wouldn't have wars, because we would know I don't have to take yours because there's plenty. And like you said, it's something you ponder when you go, okay, everything was burnt to the ground, and you know what? I'm still here. I'm breathing. I'm alive.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And the only way you can have enough is to live in this. Here's what I discovered through this kind of pondering and digging into it, is the only way I can have enough is living in this very moment, because only in this moment do I have enough. Not in the past, not in the future.
Well, that's what they talk about in The Power of Now. And that is living in the present and not thinking about what went on in the past and what's going to happen in the future. And it's interesting. A friend of mine who's no longer with us, Ray Pelletier, he was a wonderful speaker and coach. And his company was January 1st, because he said every day is January 1st. It doesn't matter what happened yesterday, and we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And so today is your day. It's January 1st. And that's how he lived his life, and that was his message. And I thought, what a wonderful idea, what a wonderful message. And it's interesting because when we talk about, is this enough, we're influenced. We're influenced by our neighbors. We're influenced by the media. We're influenced by just circumstance. And of course, as we've had this discussion before, success is different to everybody. What I consider successful, you might not, and vice versa. So all of this is really, really important. We've got just a minute left before we take our break, and so I really don't want to get into a new area, but I do want to comment on some of the things that you have said, and that is, first of all, that how you were raised. I was fortunate, and I guess some people might not think I was fortunate, but I was fortunate in that my mom always never talked about marriage, even though she was a homemaker. She never really worked, except when my sister and I went to college, to help us get through. But it was always, you must go to college, you must make your own living, you must not depend on a man. And my mom and dad had a wonderful marriage, but she was always teaching us to be independent. And this was a woman who never finished high school because she had to go to work to send her brother to college, because those were the days of that norm. And it's so interesting to see how, both my sister and I were raised in a situation where make your own living. And my sister has always worked. She's a psychotherapist. She's retired now, but she's still active in community and civic activities. And she's older than I am. She's 5 years older than I am, and she goes like crazy. And so I just think all of this is so important for people to look at their lives and say exactly what you said, Yvette, and that is, when is enough enough? And what is the principle of enough? So with that, we're going to take our break. We'll be back with Yvette Grove in a few moments. And folks, stay tuned, because Yvette is a wealth of knowledge. She has the sales knowledge, she has the business knowledge, and she has the creativity in writing this book and dreaming up this deliciously character called Lily. And for those of you who are grandparents, you might want to get her books. We'll talk about that in the next segment, where you can find them and how you can order them and what's involved in that. But stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Dr. Gayle, and I wanted you to know I have a whole bunch of other things to offer you. If you go to spunkyoldbroad.com, you will see an array of SOB stuff for sale and all our latest products and additions. If you're interested in getting on TV, I have a brand new course, Get on TV. And if you want to start your own business, you'll want my SOB Guide to Business Success. I know you'll love them all. I guarantee it.